Good morning. So, there are situations where you need to run QuantumPOS on multiple computers. The thing that is important is to make sure that the SQL Server database can allow remote connections so that the clients can connect. So this is the video. Let's get into it. Let's open SQL Server Management Studio. Connect, like I'm doing now. I've connected using Windows Authentication, which is the default setting. What we want to do is make sure that under properties for the database, we go here, security. Let's make sure that we have selected SQL Server and Windows Authentication mode. This is for environments where we do not have an Active Directory. If you've got an Active Directory, you don't have to select this. Keep it under Windows Authentication and you should be okay. We also go under connections. Let's just check and make sure that it's ticked, allow remote connections to this server. This is important. And say okay. The next thing you want to do is go under security and logins. In my case, I want to enable the user SA. We right click it, properties, give it a password, confirm the password. You don't have to enforce the policy, it's up to you. You go to status, make sure you tick enabled. This is important. Then say okay. Alternatively, you can create your own login which you're going to use for these connections so that the clients on the QuantumPOS application can connect to the server. You can create your own login. That is okay. Just remember it, and it's actually better practice than using the default superadmin SA. Okay, so in this case we use SA for this video purposes only, and this is now fine. What we now need to do is open SQL Server Configuration Manager. Hope you can find it. Sometimes it's hard to find. Okay, there it is right on top. SQL Server Configuration Manager. Let's open that. Yes, this is how it looks. But before, sometimes let's say you try to search on Windows 10 or Windows 11 and you can't find SQL Server Configuration Manager. You just need to know the version of SQL Server you're running. Let me close this. And you can go to Start, Run, and you type SQL Server Manager and you put the version number. In my case, I'm using version 15. Yours could be 14, yours could be 13. It just depends. And you say okay, it will open. So both ways work, right? So what we need to do is look for SQL Server Network Configuration. This is on the left side here. It should be the third node there. The database I'm using is SQL Server Express for this demo, not SS 2019. So we go to protocols for SQL Server Express. We have to enable named pipes. We have to enable TCP/IP. Note the error is just saying that the changes only take effect after the service has been restarted. That's also okay. And say fine. We go under TCP/IP. We go to properties. Right click there. The second tab, IP addresses. Go to the bottom. We need to make sure that under TCP dynamic ports, it is blank, not 0, not F space, blank. So backspace. Then you go to TCP port. Here you can specify the port you want SQL Server to be using. By default, it uses 1433, and we can use that. If you want to use a special particular port that you want to use in your environment, it might even be higher security, you can do that. Take note that when you do change the port number here, you also have to change it under the SQL Server services as well. But for now, we'll use the default one. Okay, this is fine. We go to SQL Server services here. We want to make sure that the browser is also running. The browser is important for when you're connecting from the client. By default, you can't start it. It has to be enabled. We go to properties, go to the second tab here, service. It's default here. Go to automatic, apply. Say okay. Now we can start it. Wonderful. Let's start it. Okay. SQL Server browser started. Remember, we need to restart the actual service as well. So while it's restarting, we just remember what we've done. We are configuring SQL Server so that it can allow remote connections on that port 1433, and that's what we have done. Okay, so this is fine. Now I can close this. But by default, Windows 10, Windows 11, and maybe other versions as well, they will block most of the ports So even if you try to connect your client to this particular server computer, you will not be able to succeed. We need to open those ports in the firewall. Let's go to start and look for advanced Windows Defender firewall with advanced security. Let's open it. Okay, it's open. On the left, you see the type of rules. We want inbound rules. Our clients are trying to connect to this server. Inbound rules. Then we go to the right, click new rule, and the port. Next. Remember, the port we want is 1433. That's the one we entered. Go to next. We need to allow this, allow all that. Maybe also give it a name. We also have to make another rule. It's another port as well. This time it's UDP. Make sure you put UDP here. 1434. This is also default port. Allow connection. Give it a name. UDP. And voila, we're done. If you configure the username to connect, you should be able to connect. If you are able to connect here using SQL Server Authentication, SA, that's it. That's all. That means you should be able to, let's just make sure you can see the tables. Pause. Okay, here the table. So that means this user can connect. So ideally in this case the client can connect. So remember that when you're now connecting, let's open let's run SQL Server here so that we can actually test it. Connection has not been set. When you come here, you now have to remember to put the server name here. Okay, maybe for the sake of this demo, let me put this aside so that we can just see it clearly. Okay, and we see the two screens side by side. Okay, now the server in this case is QuantumPC, which is what I've put here. You will see the same server name here. If our installation is a normal default installation with a named instance of SQL Express, like in this case, you don't have to put anything in there. You just leave it like that. You tick SQL Express, and then we're no longer using Windows Authentication because we cannot authenticate using the same Windows user on this server as on the client, because we're not on an Active Directory. We have to use SQL Authentication, and we put our username here, the one we created or the SA user that we enabled. If you test, it should be successful. This is how it's done. There will be instances where, for example, I've got another database here, this one, SS2 2019, right? This database is different because it doesn't have SQL Express here. It actually has SS2019, which is a bit different from your default installation. In such a case, I have to untick SQL Express here. Then here I have to put that extension, the default name of that database, like this, and you can test, and you can see it's also successful. So this is how we do it. Thank you so much for your time.